Blood comes from the eye, I know. You know what? That's the risk. Yeah. You could educate. Yeah. Good morning.
How's everybody? Uh-oh. I'm like, uh-oh. It's a good weekend of football. I'm excited. Brady, every time he gets hit, I'm like, don't hurt him. He's so old. Don't hit him. Every time he makes it through a game. But lots of good football. My children got slaughtered at soccer. Pretty embarrassing. But at soccer, you're like, why are you still smiling? They're gone. No, we had our first soccer games on Saturday. We lost 5-0 and 6-0. My kids were like, this isn't very fun. I'm like, I'm sorry. The other team is such bad sportsmanship. Like these little girls, they're like 8. They're elbowing each other, making fun of each other. I'm like, it starts so early. I know, it's such a soccer game. Like laying on the ground, my leg. Oh, no one's looking. I'll get up. It's soccer. But anyway, we got some rain, had some football. It was a good weekend. Back at it today. We start reproductive anatomy today. So we'll start chapter 5. Oh, good catch. We'll start chapter 5 today. It'll take us about 2 days to get through. And then we'll go into chapter 6, which is male anatomy. And then after that, after we finish those 2 chapters, we have our first exam. So just a kind of a little preview of things coming up, right? Our first exam is on the 26th. So that's basically what, 2 weeks from today. So a little bit away still, you don't have to worry about it yet. And remember, our exams are going to be on Canvas. You can use your notes, you can use your book. Really no reason you all shouldn't do fantastically on them. We'll talk about that first exam when we get a little bit closer, but it's about 2 weeks away, just to make sure it's kind of in the back of your mind somewhere. But before we get there, we still have 2 more chapters to get through. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do in this first chapter here, we're going to look at female sexual anatomy. And really important, I think one of the areas of sexual intelligence, right? That scientific knowledge. I think one of the places that people tend to be the weakest on is knowing the correct anatomical terms for things. And so we'll talk about that today, some of the technical terms that people rarely use, but it's important to know. And then we're going to start with a little activity. And this has traditionally been one of my favorite things to do. And I've gotten in trouble for it actually in the past, which I think is great fun too. I'm going to have you draw something for me in groups. I used to leave them up on the walls, but then I got complaints. I don't know. The rebel in me thought that was great fun, but I've learned my lessons. I'll take them down at the end today. But what we're going to do, I want you to get into groups of let's say 3 or 4 people, no more than 4. So let's say between 2 and 4. It's totally up to you, but find 2 to 4 people, whatever's convenient. You're going to be spending about 10 minutes or so with your group. So go ahead and turn your desks, find a group. All right, everybody have a group? I ripped a few of these. I ripped the handle, not that that was ever going to work as a handle. But, okay, so what I want you to do here in a moment is send one person from your group up. But before you do that, make sure that the slides are closed, your notes are closed, anything that might have images or anything from what we're going to draw today. We can even go one step further here. All right. So what I'm going to do with the group, you can send one person up. And when you come up here, if you could grab one piece of paper, so one of the big pieces of paper. I have some markers here. I have some Sharpies if you want to grab a couple of them, like 1 or 2 of them, that's fine. You're welcome to use whatever you have, 2 pencils or whatnot. But I'm going to keep it hard. And it has a list of internal and external structures of female anatomy. And what I want you to do is to draw me either one picture or two pictures. Oftentimes people do two, because some of these are external and some are internal, of these different structures. Now, if you don't know what they are, you can feel free to be creative. I've got some very funny, creative things over time, and I will share those with you after you've done your versions. But send someone up, grab one of these, and some markers, and then go ahead as a group and start drawing. Whoever feels comfortable doing it.
Thank you.
And then if you want some Sharpies, they're right here.
Take one.
Are you gonna draw all of them? No, for let's to put it up on the wall. When we're done, you will. There you go. So again, one. Feel free to start in pencil and then you can go over.
When you know. Yeah. Okay. It's nice to see.
I know.
This part very much to say a bridge. Just look at it starting. Not even. Not at all.
Oh, worse. I mean, it's fun. Let's see our features work. Yeah, that's good. Cool.
Yeah, don't forget to label everything. This is me doing that.
Yeah. No, that was. Name. Like. Name. Yeah. Just you German.
No, I know. That's, yeah. That has to be good. But I didn't, I'm not. Perfect so far. But if you want her.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not wrong, like, yeah, I'm like, not really. No, really. Like, no.
Do you want, yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Asterisk. Not drawing.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have to.
No one.
So it's gonna take maybe like 5 minutes or so.
This is like, yeah. Right, how do you guys? We can see over there and then.
Oh. It's the. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. It's not from that one.
All right, a few more minutes.
Yeah. Thanks for seeing that one. It's nothing, I would say that it's right here. Also, we get the-
No, I actually do something. I would go. Hey, this. Thank you. Oh, come on. Yeah, I would just say, yeah, no.
Hey, yeah. First and last names on the little paper. You're gonna turn that in for credit. Her name on the little first and last name, so I can get points for that too. Points for your beautiful drawings.
Oh. I still believe it's pretty like that.
Oh, it's very. Done.
Hey, with that.
Mine.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, if you're done, if you could start bringing everything back up, I'm gonna hang up around the room here. Thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you. All right, Ian, if you want to bring back up the markers, make sure I get your little card with your names on it so you get credit for your beautiful drawing. My last two groups finish up here. These are beautiful. Ready? Ready? Spot on. I like the confidence. All right. I like that. All right. I have to say, these are beautiful. I really think that they could decorate the room nicely. But as I said, I left these up once, and the class after, which was a history class, wasn't so happy with me. Apparently, they were too distracting. But maybe you learned something. I don't know. I had an email. So I will take them down after today. I think we should leave them up during our class. These are very, very nice. I love it. A lot of people chew. I like the hat, the bird. Right. Oh, bird mom's better. I love it. All right. So I will say there's usually at least two structures that people don't know what they are, right? The Mons Veneris and the perineum are like the two universally that people are like, I have no idea where to put that. I've had some really creative ones. We had a couple of creative ones today, but I had the USS Mons Veneris once, like a Star Trek kind of thing. Count Mons Veneris, a little Dracula, and then Veneris Targaryen one year, which I thought was pretty hilarious too. Little Game of Thrones reference, right? But these are fantastic. We'll talk about the structures here, but I wanted to give you a chance to see where you're at. I thought these are great, right? I am not an artist, so these are wonderful. If I did it, it would be far, far worse. So feel good, pat yourself on the back. We're going to talk a little bit about these structures and where they all are. And if you were to draw it again, hopefully it'd be super easy. You're not going to draw it again, but we'll leave them up to decorate our room. But we'll start with external anatomy, and then we will move to internal anatomy. And what I'm going to do is just kind of talk about each of the main structures, and then some of their main functions. So I'll write like a word or two with each one on the board. They're also obviously covered really well in the textbook too, if you need a little bit more information later. But it's important to know the technical names for all of these structures. We rarely use them, right? But it would be important to know them. What can you think of one reason why it might be important to know them? The actual names? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, or like if you were at the doctor, for example, and needed to describe an area that hurts or was uncomfortable or like something with your reproductive anatomy, it would be nice to know the actual name, right? So that you can make sure you're communicating that correctly. Other than that, most of the time we don't use these, we use slang, and we will take an opportunity to come up with some slang words a little later. But these are the external structures of female genitalia, right? And we often refer to all of the external structures together as the vulva. Right, so the vulva collectively would be all of the external structures or external genitalia for the female reproductive system, right? So different than the vagina is an internal structure, which we'll get to in a little bit. These are all the external structures, so things that are on the outside of the body for the most part. So going through these, the vulva, right, collectively would be all of this. In general, all the structures are going to be relatively the same, though the appearance of one vulva to another can be incredibly different. Gynecologists who were interviewed said no two vulvas are the same, right? That they all look a little bit different. I have some images that I will show you. Maybe you will like that or not in a minute, but I think it's important to kind of see that variety here. We'll just do it now because it's there. So a couple of different images, and I have to tell you, doing a Google search for vulvas is dangerous. Don't do that. I wouldn't recommend it. But a lot of variety, right? The lips, different sizes and shapes, different colors, hair, no hair, an incredible amount of variation, but all of the structures, for the most part, remaining the same. So going back here, the mons veneris, a structure that a few of you were like, I have no idea where that goes. It does sound like kind of like a vampire name or something like that, or a spaceship or something with space. I like the little picture of a planet over there. It's Latin for mound of Venus. And it's named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty, right? So that's where the name comes from, of Mons Veneris. The main job of the mons veneris, which is kind of that fatty covering over the pubic bone, which may or may not have hair on it, depending on somebody's personal choice, is cushioning and protection. So this kind of fatty mound of tissue has the job of protecting the pubic bone during any kind of like intercourse or sexual activity from like any kind of damage from being bruised or bombarded, right? Like through any kind of intercourse, right? So this fatty mound, which may or may not, again, have hair on it, has that main job of cushioning and protection. The labia, there's two sets of labia. We have the labia majora and the labia minora. These are often referred to as like the lips, right? The outer lips are like the larger lips on the outside, or the inner lips, the smaller, minor, if that helps you to remember them. But the ones on the outside are kind of the larger outer lips of the vulva, again, having very similar job, kind of cushioning and protection. So we can write that again here. But the labia minora have a very important job in things like arousal. For example, they contain an incredible number of sweat and oil glands, along with nerve endings and blood vessels. Blood vessels, nerve endings. So they play a big role in arousal. When a woman becomes aroused, it is the oil and sweat glands within the labia, right, that help to create that like lubrication that comes with arousal, right? So big part in that, a lot of blood vessels, nerve endings, and so on, sweat and oil glands. A couple of other things here, right? The clitoris, the structure in Greece, as they said in the documentary. Most of you got this just fine on your little things here. Nobody drew a statue, right? But the clitoris, the main job here is pleasure. That's the only function of this structure, right? And sometimes we talk about the clitoris having a clitoral hood that tends to cover it a little bit. You'll see when we get to male anatomy, it's really interesting. There are structures that are very like analogous to each other, right? So like the head of the penis and the clitoris, right, are the same thing when a baby is developing. And then depending on what the hormones are and the chromosomal makeup, they specialize in different directions. So what you see is that each structure kind of has its counterpart or equivalent and male anatomy. So we'll talk about that a little more when we get there. But an area of very, very dense nerve endings, with the only function really being pleasure. That's really the only like function of that part of the body. The urethra. The urethra is a small opening. You can see where it says urethral opening. This is the spot where urine would pass from the bladder. Right, so there are multiple openings here, right? So the place where urine would come out from the body, right, is the urethral opening, versus the introitus is the opening to the vagina, which we'll talk more about when we get to the internal structures. We could also add the hymen. Right, the hymen, kind of an interesting structure. It's the part that covers the vaginal opening. It has a very common like slang term. Does anyone know what that would be? It starts with a C. Yeah, right. So like if you were to pop somebody's cherry or to burst their hymen, that's traditionally something that we would say for someone who has intercourse for the first time. Sometimes when that happens, there can be a little bit of bleeding that occurs. Kinsey's wife, they talked about this in the documentary, had a restricted hymen. Right, her hymen was very restricted and closed off, which made intercourse very difficult. She had to have surgery to repair that. Oftentimes also had a very interesting historical amount of importance. When people were to get married in the past, they were supposed to be a virgin, supposed to be virtuous, especially royalty. And they would often perform a check to make sure that they were actually still a virgin. What they were checking was to see if the hymen was still intact. If it was still intact, they were considered to be a virgin and they got that approval. If it wasn't, right, then they scandal, right? It was oftentimes very scandalous. Now, this is something that can rupture or break on its own. It can also rupture or break due to some kind of injury, or even like the use of like a tampon or something like that. So it isn't a perfect system of if this is intact and someone is a virgin, in terms of like intercourse. But it's something historically that was oftentimes checked before marriage to see if somebody was still virtuous or still a virgin. So we could put this here as the part that covers the vaginal opening. And one more, the perineum. We're kind of ran out of room here. All right. The perineum is this thin area of skin right here between the end of like the outside of the vulva and the anus, right? And this is the area of skin is very sensitive, that if you've ever heard of a woman talking about ripping during childbirth, right? Not to make you think about that, but sometimes what happens is people can have what's called an episiotomy, where this thin area of skin can kind of stretch and even rip during labor and childbirth as a baby is coming out of the vaginal canal. It happens less and less now than it used to. So we have a lot of techniques for helping to kind of stretch that area, but it sometimes does happen. But it's a very sensitive area of skin, that little area there between the vaginal opening and the end of the vulva and the anus. Right. So those are the two structures that a lot of people didn't know where they went: the perineum and the mons veneris. Now you know. Though I kind of like the Count mons veneris better than that. I think that's quite creative. I love the ideas that you came up with, the little hat and everything too. I love it. So again, these are all the external structures, and important to know the different terms and names. Though, as I said, we very rarely use them. And I think it's important to know them, but I also think it's a kind of entertaining and a good like building exercise to think about all of the slang. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to think about slang for vagina or vulva, right? Kind of lower reproductive anatomy of females. So in your same group, I want you to talk for a minute, come up with a list of all the slang terms for like vagina or vulva, or like lower reproductive anatomy for females that you come up with. Write them down, and then we'll share them. You're welcome to look them up online if you get stuck and you only have a few. But go ahead and get back together, make a list, and we'll talk about it together in a moment. See, now this.
No. Yeah, yeah. No.
Yeah.
Not really, no.
I'll give you a few more minutes and then we'll talk about them together. Write them all down so you can share. There you go.
It's like, wow.
What?
Like, the first game, it's like, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so like one more minute and then we'll go through the justice.
And that's the worst I'm calling it from now. Yes, oh my god, I've heard that ever. See, now I'm scared. I'm sure it's like. Oh, yeah. Yeah, hold on. All right, everybody. It's on. So we will definitely do this again for male anatomy. We're gonna do this for breasts. We're gonna do this for masturbation. Until we get there. But anyone to share your list? Yeah, I love it. Go for it.
Fancy damn stuff. Be it the same. Good smile. Flower. Yeah, I don't know what's like things, but nothing.
That's yeah. Okay. I like it. Anyone want to add some overlap if you want to read their list? Anybody else? Yes, thank you. I like it. Okay.
So we have a long list. We have box, lips, clam, lady business, coochie, kitty, roast beef, snatch, hunt, beaver, taco, but you already said that one.
That's okay.
Cooter, which gross, that's so gross. Pussy, obviously, the JJ, I stole that. Muff, coin purse, honey pot, twat, gash, that's cool, that's it. Meat curtains, sword sheep, pussy, oh, I already said that one, sorry, on the brain. And I think axe wound also, axe wound is a good one. And I think we should use it more.
We have an interesting combination of like violent wounds and food. I don't know if you've noticed that, right? Some of these are pretty awful, right? They're awful. But I have to tell you a funny story. You said vajayjay. I was with in college. I was with my partner and two other like women who were together, and we went to a sushi restaurant. And I'm not a big fan of sushi. I've tried it multiple times, and I just like I cannot get into it. There's like one or two that I will tolerate, but that's about it. But my friend, who was like so incredibly sheltered, ordered a vajayjay roll. Like she said it wrong, and she was like, "Can I get a vajayjay roll?" And the poor waitress was all like trying not to lose her mind. This is like 4 lessons and one of them ordered a vajayjay roll. And she all like, of course she ordered that and walked away. And my friend was like, yeah, it's a great restaurant. Right. That's New York. Yeah, that's like walking into a joke right there. It's like, did they have a joke? Anybody have any other ones? Or some of them already been said.
It's like Arby's. They just like think that in general.
Okay.
Like it's supposed to like different, just like size sandwiches.
I don't think so. We had yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Tinder box. Okay. Okay. And was there anyone else want to read the list, even if there's a little bit of overlap? I don't want to rob you of your opportunity to share. Yeah.
Spanish speakers are hot on your shirt.
Okay.
And then we got Kitty, Hot Pocket, Panini, Lady Bits, Downstairs, Bunny. I don't know who did that one. Taco, Cookie, and Pussy again, just to say.
Okay. You're like, it has to be said again, right? So I get so much play, right? We don't tend to use the technical names. They're very rarely used. We use slang instead. But hopefully we can have a blending of the two, right? Important to know these, even if we never use them. So hold on to that list. We will definitely have more opportunities for that. At least one more today.
internal structures. So let's talk a little bit about some of the internal structures of female anatomy. So we usually divide them up into internal and external. We'll do the same with male anatomy when we get there. And a lot of you I think did a great job with this image, right? If you look at all of your pictures that you drew, a lot of you got the internal structures even better than the external ones. So some of the things that we see here, we have the vagina, cervix, uterus, fallopian tubes, and ovaries, right? Are the traditional internal structures for someone who is biologically female. So I'm going through these a little bit, right? The vagina is a muscular canal. Plays a huge role in intercourse, in childbirth. And interestingly, for all of the, like the norms and stereotypes that we have about penis size, the vaginal canal on its own is about 4 inches long. 4 inches. So for all of those like societal expectations and norms of male like penis size being large, right, being desirable, 4 inches is the average size of somebody's vagina, the muscular canal. Because it is so much of a muscle, it does stretch and expand. So it can tolerate and handle much more than 4 inches, right? But that is the size of that piece of anatomy. Interesting to just compare that to some of the expectations of male anatomy. But plays a big role in sexual activity, a lot of blood vessels being present, a lot of nerve endings as well. Again, a big part in childbirth. This is what a baby would pass through on the way out of the body. The cervix is the part at the back end of the vagina, right? So we have the vaginal canal and then the uterus. The cervix is this part in between. Plays a really big part in labor and childbirth. When we talk about somebody being dilated and effacing, it's the cervix that starts to open up to allow for that to happen. So we could say it's the end of the uterus. We'll talk a lot about that when we get to childbirth, about how this can open up and dilate and allow then that baby to pass through, located at the back of the vagina. The uterus plays a big role in fetal development and orgasm. So the uterus is this kind of like pear-shaped structure. We sometimes call it the womb. It's a very common name for it as well. Plays a big role in childbirth and also the growth of a baby, right? When somebody is pregnant, this is where that fetus or that embryo will develop and grow. It plays a big role as well in, as I said, as in orgasm. It tends to contract very intensely during orgasm. But the uterus, right there we see in the middle, surrounded on either side by the fallopian tubes. And the fallopian tubes are kind of like an egg carrying tube. Their big job is to transport the eggs from the ovaries down to the uterus, right? And so ideally, this is what would happen if someone was trying to get pregnant. We'll again talk more about that later. But we can say this is where fertilization takes place. So when egg and sperm meet, if they were going to meet, it traditionally happens in the fallopian tubes. So these tubes, as I said, carry the eggs down from the ovaries to the uterus, and this is traditionally where an egg and sperm would meet and that fertilization would occur. Every now and then you can get what's called an ectopic pregnancy, if you've ever heard that term. Sometimes in very rare cases, and it can be dangerous, that fertilized egg can actually implant in the fallopian tube. And it usually needs to be remedied with surgery because there's no room for that, obviously, for that cell to develop. Normally what we want is the fertilization takes place and then it implants in the uterine wall. But in rare cases that can happen in the fallopian tubes. And then finally, the ovaries produce the eggs or ova. They play a big part in a lot of the hormonal processes occurring for women. But what happens is once every roughly month or so, a mature egg will be released from the ovaries. Women are born with every egg they will ever have, as we talked about a little bit on that little intelligence test I gave you back in the beginning. Every single egg that a woman will ever have is present from birth, but they're immature. So every month there are signals sent to the ovaries to cause the egg to develop and to mature, and then it's released, traveling down the fallopian tube toward the uterus. So these produce those eggs or ova, and they also play a really big part in a lot of the different hormones that control the reproductive system, the menstrual cycle, and so on. So those are all the big structures, and I will let you know on the exam that not only is what they're in charge of fair game, but I also might ask you to label them, right? So make sure that when you are reviewing the slides that you are able to not only label them, but also know what they are in charge of. And I tried to give you kind of a little bulleted list of what that is on the board. Any questions, comments, thoughts, anything for now? Yeah. Say that one more time, I'm sorry. Not really, right? So the biggest thing for the cervix, see, the plugs up the second somebody becomes pregnant, right? It closes up and it maintains all of that fluid in there. And then that's when it starts to dilate, the fluid comes out and the person's water breaks or bag of water breaks. But not so much, right? The uterus does in the way that it contracts and constricts during orgasm. Not so much for the cervix. Other thoughts, questions, anything for now? Okay. All right. Yeah.
Do the fallopian tubes, how do they move back?
So that they loop back around?
Yeah, like in the ovaries.
Mhm.
Okay, I didn't.
So if you have the ovary and then they connect to it, there's actually a little bit of a space here where the egg kind of floats across. But yeah, they almost do like a little bit of a loop. And people can have issues with the fallopian tube, which can cause problems with getting pregnant. My partner, for example, had to have both of her fallopian tubes surgically like removed because they were blocked and it was causing a problem for her getting pregnant. That can happen because they do kind of loop and curve around them. Yeah.
Where's the G spot?
The G spot, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit. I'm glad you asked, right? So the G spot is actually located up inside. It's called the Grafenberg spot, if you wanted the full name, named after the person who invented it. No one's ever called it that, right? Or the person who identified it, I should say, right? Can you imagine putting that on your like life resume? Guess what I'm in charge of, right? He discovered it and named it. Yeah, named it. I shouldn't say invented it, but named it. Yeah. Did you know? I invented the G spot. No expectation whatsoever. But yeah, so right up inside of the vaginal canal. And I have a better image of that when we get to kind of the reproductive cycle in terms of how people respond. But yeah, up inside the vaginal canal, about 2 inches or so up inside the vaginal canal. Is that yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the backside of this, like.
It's actually inside the vaginal canal, right?
Like, yeah, so like, it's kind of like, so you have the clitoris.
Yeah.
G spot is like on the other end, inside.
Yes, right. And I kind of got what you're saying. So yes, if you were to go up and like none of these images are gonna help very much with that. But yeah, if you go up inside the vaginal canal back toward like behind the clitoris is where you would find that. Mhm. All right. Menstruation, everybody's favorite topic, right, to talk about. I don't know. Okay, my mind, I was like, all I could think of was my 10-year-old daughter. My daughter got her like first menstrual cycle this year, and I was completely unprepared for that, right? And all I could think about as I put the slide up was that I probably shouldn't have shared that information, but it will never get back to her. She was 9. I was not ready for that. The average age is 11 and a half, and she was 9. That's my fun side note for you. I lost my mind a little bit that day. We were camping. I was like, what's happened here? I know. Anyway, menstruation. We'll talk a little bit about this as well. I want to give you a moment, one more opportunity for slang today. In your same group, how many slang terms can you come up with for somebody on your menstrual cycle? So I'll give you just a couple of minutes. This one's a little briefer, I think, but come up with what you can.
I know you have like three.
Just like one more, so let's see what you can come up with. Are you out? Got one with what? What do we come up with? Share one if you have one. Yeah. The red scare. What else? One. Here's Shark Week. One. What else? What are some other? On the red. Okay. Other ones? Yeah.
Where some, I don't know if it's this, but one probably called something. I don't know.
Okay, okay. There's always a million of these, right? What else? Anything else that you've heard yet? Bleeding, okay, period, right? Really, it's super, probably the most common one, yeah. And Flo came to visit, lady days, lady times, right? Anyone have any other ones? Those are usually like the big ones. Does anyone say surfing the crimson tide? Heard that one as well, right? There's a bunch of slang terms for this as well. Menstruation, right, is this process, and it's an ongoing process. It's something that women go through for a very large portion of their life. And it comes from two different words together. It comes from menses, which means month, and mene, which means moon. Right, this is actually based on the lunar cycle. That's where the term comes from, which is about 29 and a half days. The average menstrual cycle period of time is 28 days, but loosely based on the idea of the lunar cycle. So that's where the term menstruation comes from, mene and month, right? Menses and mene, meaning month and moon. Very big process for women, right? It's an ongoing hormonal influence. Traditionally, the average age for a woman to get her first menstrual cycle is around 11 and a half. Now, it used to be closer to 13, but over time, what we see is it's getting earlier and earlier and earlier due to increased rates of obesity, environmental influences, chemicals that are mimicking the effects of estrogen, hormones in our different foods that we are consuming. So what we're seeing is that first menstrual cycle, which we call menarche, up here at the top left, is usually around the age of 11 and a half, 12 or so on average. Sometimes 9, right? It can be an incredible range from being earlier to being a little bit later as well. And then menopause is the other end. Menopause is the cessation or the stopping of menstrual cycles, which typically is somewhere between the ages of 45 to 55. So on average, women from the age of 11-ish to about 45-ish are experiencing a menstrual cycle roughly every month. Now, it's a 28-day cycle, typically, but not a lot of women follow that cycle to the T, right? A lot of women have irregular cycles. Some might be shorter, some might be longer. We'll talk about it in terms of a 28-day cycle, but it can be it can be an incredible amount of variability. And if somebody's trying to get pregnant or avoid getting pregnant, that can sometimes make that a little bit difficult if your menstrual cycles are very irregular. I have a little video that kind of shows you this process. I think it's a really nice little overview, and then I'll write some more stuff up here and we'll talk about the 4 phases. Let me pause this process that women go through roughly every month or so. A lot of different hormonal influences, several different phases. So let's break that down a little bit more, but I'd like to give you that little overview first. So we have 4 phases that are part of this process, right? The menstrual phase, the follicular phase, ovulation phase, and the luteal
phase? This would be a great short answer question for you, right? What are the 4 different phases, or maybe matching what happens in each of those phases? That'd be a great question for you on that first exam. But if we look at this, I drew a little line here, right? 1 to 28. And again, we're just going to assume a 28-day cycle for now, though that is, again, not the case for a lot of women. But the first phase that we go through is the menstrual phase, right? And that's typically days 1 through 6. On average, like 3 to 6 days is the average amount of time that somebody is bleeding or releasing that lining of the uterus, which we could call the endometrium. So we have the menstrual phase, which is right here, right? Days roughly 1 to 6. And again, in this menstrual phase, what we have is that cells of the uterus, right, that lining, the endometrium, I'll write that up here. The endometrium, or the lining that is built up in the uterus, is being released from the body. This whole cycle, the whole menstrual cycle, is aimed around allowing a woman to get pregnant, right? A woman's body is really designed to get pregnant when it comes to all of these different processes. That's the whole goal, right? And so what happens is every month, this endometrium builds up, waiting for that fertilized egg to come. And if it doesn't come, then it's released, and then it start over the next month. So the whole process is really geared around that. So days roughly like 3 to 6 on average for women is when they're having their menstrual cycle, or like their period is when they're bleeding, and that endometrium is being released out of their body. After that, it just keeps going, right? So again, this is constantly just one to another, to another, to another. The follicular phase happens next. And in the follicular phase, we're talking about a follicle. Right, so what we have here is the egg begins to mature for release. Remember, all of those eggs are just sitting there in the ovaries, right? But they're immature. They need to be signaled to develop. And so what happens is every month, right, we get all these different hormones that are released and that are released into the body, causing that egg to mature. Right, so it signals one egg at random on either ovary, and it starts to mature and get ready to be released. Somewhere right around day like 13 or 14 or so is when we have the ovulation phase. And in the ovulation phase, a woman's egg is released from the ovary, right? And it starts to travel down the fallopian tube toward the uterus. So this is when the ovum or the egg is released. There's a huge surge of a hormone that happens right here, and it's called LH, or luteinizing hormone, that we talked about back in the last chapter. When somebody has ovulation occur, they have a massive surge of LH. It's a hormone that's released in the body, and that is something that, again, you could detect on an ovulation test. And oftentimes people use this knowledge to help them get pregnant. Oh, I'm ovulating, we need to have intercourse. Or I'm ovulating, we need to avoid intercourse. You could use it in either way, because right after this phase of ovulation is when you are most likely to get pregnant, right? So this phase, this area like right here, we could say days like 16 and 17, though there's an incredible amount of variability. If somebody has an irregular cycle, this could be a little bit different. We call this the fertile window. So if somebody were to have unprotected intercourse between days like 1 and like 15 or so, there is no egg to fertilize. Your chances of getting pregnant from here to here are close to 0 because there's nothing to fertilize, right? Sperm can stay inside the body, can stay alive inside the body for several days, but if there's nothing to fertilize, pregnancy can't occur. So oftentimes what people will do is they'll use this knowledge to help them. If somebody's trying to get pregnant, they're going to want to have intercourse right around here, right? Because if they do that and sperm is introduced into the body, there is an egg traveling down that fallopian tube that could be fertilized, and it could help them to get pregnant. Now, if you don't want to get pregnant, you know not to have intercourse right around this window, right? Especially like unprotected intercourse, because if any kind of like sperm is introduced into the reproductive tract, your odds of getting pregnant are much, much higher. At the very end or the very beginning, it's next to zero because there's no egg there to fertilize. So you can use this knowledge in a couple of different ways, either to help you get pregnant or help you avoid getting pregnant, depending on your goal. The last phase right in here would be the luteal phase. And that happens kind of at the last part of this 28-day cycle. Oh, why are we getting a thumbs down for the luteal phase? Yeah, it can cause some people to have some of the things like the PMS symptoms that we'll talk about probably next time a little bit. But in this one, it's called the luteal phase because there's a body that develops called the corpus luteum. Remember in that little video that I just showed you, there's like a hard mass called the corpus luteum that is released. As soon as that egg leaves the ovary, the corpus luteum is right there and it releases quite a bit of hormones. And the goal of it being there is it's trying to maintain that endometrium, maintain that lining of the uterus, just in case there's a fertilized egg coming down to the uterus. Right. So again, the whole goal of this is to help a woman get pregnant. So this corpus luteum releases a lot of hormones like progesterone and quite a few others, right, to help that endometrium stay there. And if it isn't something that occurs, right, if that egg gets down there and there's no fertilization that happens, this corpus luteum breaks down, those hormones disappear, and then we're back to having another cycle where that endometrium is released by the body. Once you're done with that, the egg starts to mature, it's released, the luteum maintains the lining, nothing happens, you have another cycle. So it's just round and round and round, roughly every 28 days or so, between the ages of roughly 11 and 45, with a lot of variability. So an incredible amount of hormones that are being released into the body on this constant cycle. Men do have slight monthly cycles as well, just as an interesting side note. They obviously don't menstruate, but they do have kind of hormonal variations that occur over the month. So if anyone ever looks at a woman and says it's your time of the month, well, you can find a man's time of the month sometimes too. They tend to have a little time where they're a little more emotional. Not all men, but it sometimes can happen. But all of these different hormones released into the body can wreak a little bit of havoc. They can cause some problems. Some women experience very intense PMS symptoms, premenstrual syndrome, and it can even escalate more into something called PMDD. Now, we're kind of at the end of our... Look at my watch was telling me about PMS. What? Why? It scared me. I'm like, who's talking to me? All right, that's odd. So what I want to do is I'm going to stop here so we can kind of pick up and talk a little bit more about this next time, just so we don't run out of time. So we'll stop there for today. I'm going to take down all of your pictures, but they're beautiful. Thank you for putting all that effort into them. We will keep going with this chapter. Okay.